everyone, and welcome back to Learning with Yagman X. Today I'm going to be showing you how to think like a designer in your day-to-day life. So follow me as we walk through the streets of Brighton. But unfortunately, this door is closed, signifying that you can't come this way. You'll have to find another. That door handle seems useful. Now that we've made it into the Brighton Pavilion Gardens, you might notice that all of the lamps look the same. This is an example of uniformity to evoke a certain era throughout the pavilion's gardens. As you approach a road crossing, look down, or more feel what's on the ground below you. There's usually a knobbly bobbly surface, which is a signifier. It's a visual signifier, but more so, it's a signifier you can feel to help those with visual impairments to also know when a crossing is available for them to cross the road. If you ever find yourself lost, perhaps look for this most obvious example of a signifier. It's a sign that helps you know where you are and where to find wherever you want to go. Traffic lights consist of many signifiers to help pedestrians know when to cross and cars to know when to stop. A feedback loop begins when I press this button, letting the traffic lights know that a pedestrian is waiting to cross. When the man goes green, it's my turn to go, and the cars have to stop. Well, I mean, they don't have to, really. They can keep going if they want to, but that's breaking a law. This teapot is a good example of an affordance. It's something that most of us would have seen before, and therefore we've formed our own perceived affordances on what a teapot is used for and how to use a teapot. If you look at it, it's got a spout. I know, the tea is going to come out of the spout. And will it? Yes, it will. Because the spout is a signifier that this is where the tea comes from. Yum!
Disregard you had for the milk in the tea there.
As I just stopped off to take a leak, I noticed a really good example of a commonality, and that is within taps. Now, most taps that you see will have the hot on the left-hand side and cold on the right. This is to build up some perceived affordances, so that without even having to look, you know which way to move the tap to get the right temperature that you want. I also noticed a false affordance, which was a lock that was broken. So I perceived that it would lock the door, and actually, when I used it, nothing happened. Now that I've given you some examples of design terms in the real world, I want you to tell me what this is an example of. Is it an example of an affordance? Is it an example of a feedback loop? Or is it an example of salience? If you picked C, salience, then you are correct, because as you walk through the winding pathways of the lanes, your eyes can't help but be drawn to this gigantic graffiti piece of Alice in Wonderland, making it stand out from the rest of its environment, and therefore it is salient. And that concludes our tour of Brighton. Now, most of what I've shared with you today are everyday things that you see or do, and perhaps you've already noticed some of the designs that I've pointed out to you. However, if not, then that's okay too. The point of this video is to help you think like a designer. Question everything. Why does something feel intuitive? Why do we interact with the world in the way that we do? Have things been designed to help us understand their uses? As a designer, we want to figure out the flaws and the successes of those designs. But hold on a minute. I don't really feel like I have properly explained why I feel it's useful to think like a designer. Because yes, it will help to strengthen your ability to pick apart the intricacies of a design, But, and perhaps more importantly, I feel like it can also aid your self-esteem and help you to develop healthy thought practices. Is it thought practices? Thought patterns. Thought patterns. Healthy thought patterns. If you're not really following me here, don't worry. Let me read you an excerpt from a book called The Design of Everyday Things, which I know I have quoted from before, but I will again. It's by a man called Donald A. Norman. And this section is titled Falsely Blaming Yourself, and I'll just paraphrase it for you now. I have studied people making errors, sometimes serious ones. People feel guilty and either try to hide the error or blame themselves for stupidity or clumsiness. If I point out the design is faulty and that others make the same mistakes, yet the task appears simple or trivial, people still blame themselves. It is almost as if they take perverse pride in thinking of themselves as mechanically incompetent. I once was asked by a large computer company to evaluate a brand new product. In using the keyboard to enter this data, it was necessary to differentiate between the return key and the enter key, for if the wrong key is pressed, the last few minutes of work was irrevocably lost. I pointed out this problem to the designer, explaining that I had made the error frequently and that it was very likely to be a frequent error among other users. The designer's response was, "Did you read the manual?" He proceeded to explain the difference between the two keys. "Yes," I explained, "I understand the two keys. I simply confuse them. They have similar functions, are located in similar locations on the keyboard, and certainly others have had the same problems." Nope, he claimed that I was the only person who had ever complained. I was skeptical though, so we went together to some of the employees and asked them if they had ever hit the return key when they should have hit enter, and did they lose their work as a result. "Oh yeah, we do that a lot," they responded. Well, how come nobody said anything about it? They blamed themselves. After all, they had been told what to do. They had simply erred. The idea that a person is at fault when something goes wrong is deeply entrenched in society. That's why we blame others, or even ourselves. But in my experience, human error is usually a result of poor design. It should be called system error. Humans err continually. It is an intrinsic part of our nature. System design should take this into account. As a designer, it's important to not initially blame ourselves or other people for not inherently understanding or following the intended design. Instead, it's much more useful for us to stay analytical and ask ourselves, how could the design be improved to mitigate this same mistake happening again in the future? This way of thinking has helped me just become a little bit less critical of myself in my day-to-day life. And through that, it allows me to be a better designer, but also it allows me to have better mental health, because instead of my first reaction going to berating myself or getting annoyed at other people, I will sit back, breathe, and question. Learn, why did things go wrong? Not dwell on the fact that it went wrong. I'm not saying that I am perfect at this, and I definitely do still criticize myself from time to time, but I just think this is one of the things that being a designer and learning how to think like a designer and creating like a designer has actually benefited me like as a person, not just as my work career title. So I really wanted to share this with you, and this is why I wanted to make this video today. Perhaps it can help you be a little less critical of yourself. That would be nice. Anyway, let's roll the outro. If you want to find out more about design terms to help you become a better designer, I have another video on my channel that you can check out. About design terminology that will help you communicate your ideas better. And if you have any examples of design thinking in your everyday life, then please drop them in the comments down below. Have a lovely day or evening. Bye. Thank you so much to my Patreons, October Night Games, Stuart Terry, Bruce Barrett, Ib196, Sherman Jackson, Gwyn Darko, and Dave Smith, as well as all the patrons not listed here. I really appreciate all of your support. Support? Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and all that jazz. And I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has been so patient with me while I've taken a little hiatus from game design, game dev videos, at least ones where I'm teaching you myself. The game industry has been like a pretty sad place at the moment. There's been a lot of layoffs happening. Those of you in the industry know what I'm talking about. I'm sending you all my best wishes. I know it can be just like really disheartening. And yeah, for a long time I thought I wasn't a game dev and therefore I wasn't able to do these tutorial videos or anything. But my self-esteem, my self-confidence is slowly coming back. And therefore these videos are also coming back. So I do hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you. Okay.